We're going to start. This is going to be my first video, and I didn't actually plan on making a bunch of these videos, but I think I do need to make a series. Before we start this series, what I want to talk about is who I am and where I'm going to come from. So, I have a military background, and I'm also trained in the anthropological discipline. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is going to be coming from both a military background and a mixture of that plus the anthropological background that I also. In the media today, we're seeing a lot of hate. I mean, first of all, we have the president who's screaming out fake news all the time, and then we have the Senate and whoever's saying, well, no, they're not. No, they're not. We have the Democrats that are just protesting and having a hard time, and then they're having to take responsibility for a lot of these protests that they had nothing to do with. And then on the Republican side, we're having a lot of hate and just simply perceived hate. Not even necessarily they're actually hateful, but just perceived hate. Oh my God, all the president's supporters hate everybody. And it's not true. And we're going to talk about something that's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And we're going to be as fair as we can be between these two. We're going to talk about Republicans and Democrats. All right? And I'm going to start with the Republicans. I'm going to start off with just that group. Number one, Republicans are not sexist, racist, misogynistic. They may disagree with you. It's going to happen. They disagree, but they love the United States. They want what's best for the United States. The GOP has never won anything but what's best for the United States. All right? We need to let go of these ists and isms, and that's what I'm going to be trying to help to do, is let go of these ists and isms and phobias and whatnot, and stop the hate speech from the left as well as from the right. But on the opposite end of this, on the Democratic end, first thing, Republicans, you've got to know this. Obama was not the Antichrist. He was definitely not the worst president we ever had, and Democrats love this country too. I mean, the Republicans and the Democrats are two different ideologies. We're going to go into those ideologies, but at least not the ideology itself, but the paradigms at which those individuals inside the Democratic Republican Party look at the world. All right, and we're going to let go of the ists, the isms, the unpatriotic, and all the BS and all of the throwing and the MSNBC and the CNN and the Fox News. We're going to get rid of the rhetoric while we're talking here. And we're going to talk about the Republicans' paradigm versus the Democrat paradigm. Okay? So let's go ahead and start with the Republican paradigm. The Republican paradigm is an individualistic paradigm. They are all about the individual. There's absolutely their individual responsibility and individual rights, right? Individual rights. And that's what we need to look at, is things from an individual perspective. Individual, so they always argue for the individual versus the group rights. And that brings us into the Democratic paradigm. The Democratic paradigm is that of a group right. Right? They are always fighting for group rights. They look upon people as a part of a group. They're going to be a part of a group. That's why we see them out there for African American rights, LGBT rights, transgendered rights, because they don't look at those people as an individual. I'm not saying they don't see them as individuals, but they look at the group versus the individual, and they protect the group from the individual. And again, the Republicans protect the individual from the group. That's why in a republic, if little Susie owns a bike, that bike is hers. In a republic, she paid for it, she owns it. In a democracy, the rest of the little kids on the block can vote and take her bike away. It's kind of a very watered down version, but a little bit. I think a better example is if we take in something that's been recently in the news. You may have heard about that shop owner who refused to sell to that lesbian couple. I think it was California where this happened, but I might be wrong on that. It's been a couple years out of out of the news now. So this lesbian couple goes into this shop and wants to get a cake for their wedding, and the shop owner, the individual shop owner, said no. All right, I don't believe in that. It's against my religion. I don't want to sell to you because of what you stand for. And so we see two people already. This is a disagreement, and to the credit of the shop owner, unfortunately, they were activists going in there, but that's a completely different situation. But they were both right in this situation. It came down to the individual right versus the lesbian group, right? The individual shop owner. Now, if I own a shop, all right, and then, like I said, we're going to be presenting both sides because both sides have a very strong case here. There's no is or any of the BS here. So if I own a shop and I paid to manufacture that shop, I went and got a loan, my paycheck's on the line for this shop, and I'm the one that wants to sell everything that's in there, then you would think that, okay, so since that's my shop, I should be able to choose who I'm going to sell to, right? That's the idea. I'm going to choose it. It is up to me. I do want your money, but I may not agree with you. Now, I understand where that shop owner is coming from. It's their responsibility. If that shop does something wrong or violates a code, they get the brunt of it. And if that individual shop owner doesn't make a profit, they go out of business and they lose their income. That's how you fire a shop owner, is you don't buy there. Alright, so it's their responsibility. So they have the right to refuse sales to anybody that they see fit to without regulation of people coming in there. And then I get that. On the opposite end, now we're going to go from, and that's basically the Republican side of that. They're going to bat for the individual shop owner as an individual. Now, the rights of that LGBT who came into that shop and tried to buy. If I'm going into a shop and I think that every shop is the same, then I should have a reasonable expectation to buy there as long as I'm not being violent. And this is absolutely right. My credence and who I may be and my belief system should not even come into this, right? So what if I'm getting married to another man? I should be able to go into a shop as a person, as a citizen of this United States. I should be allowed to go into a shop, no matter if I'm a part of a group or not a part of a group, and be able to buy who I want to buy from. And that was the LGBT side of it. It's because that is clear discrimination, and you're rejecting these people not because you think they're violent or bad, but because you disagree with their lifestyle. That is putting them into a category and saying, no, I don't like the category that you're in, so I don't want to sell to you. Now, the real disagreement here comes to what to do. What do you do to take care of this situation? Now, the Republicans came out and says, look, it's the right of the shop owner to refuse service to whomever they want to refuse service to. But don't worry, the free market will take care of this. Because if I'm an individual, and let's say I'm gay, and I'm not gay, but it doesn't matter. Let's say I'm gay and I'm getting married to my husband and I go to a shop and they don't want to sell to me. I'm going to go to the shop down the street and I'm going to give my money to that shop. And then I'm going to go back and tell my friends, don't go to this shop won't sell to you, go to that shop. They have better customer service. And then there you go. Now they're going to have less revenue in a highly competitive. They're going to have to raise their prices because they have less customers. And because they have less customers, now they're about to go out of business. And that's what the Republicans said. There's no need for any regulation. It is the right of that shop owner to refuse service, but don't worry about it because the free market's just going to take care of itself. And that's what they wanted to do. It's just like, look, let the free market work. Absolutely, they're going to go out of business anyway. And it did. They did actually go out of business because what I just described happened is that lesbian couple went to social media and said, hey, I went to this shop, and they wanted to pass legislation. We're going to get into legislation here in just a second. And they wouldn't sell to me, and then people didn't shop there. and they went out of business. Right? Even though there was this GoFundMe to save the business, it didn't save it. Not at all. All right? And that's the way it's supposed to work. And I'm not defending that shop owner. I do believe that that shop owner has a right to sell whatever they want to, but seriously, money's money. I run a business myself, and I would never even have a second thought about what group these individuals were coming into. I'm going to sell to them because I want to make money. And if you're going into business, then you want to make money, and you need to leave your politics at the door. But I don't want to offer up my opinion too much here. Now, on the Democratic side, what they wanted to do was enter some legislation. And this was basically saying that you could not discriminate against a certain group or creed, like African Americans or Chinese or LGBT, in order to not sell to them as that. They call it discrimination. They wanted to make a law. Now, here's something that you need to understand. Anytime that you make a law, you are going to get a bunch of guys with guns, and you are saying that this law is so important, this needs to be in legislation so much, that it's worth your life. And I'm going to tell you why this is worth your life. Now, when you make a new law, right, and of course there's varying degrees of how harsh it is implemented, but it doesn't matter. You are literally going to get the police, which is the self-described biggest gang in the world, right, like the NPD, they describe them as the biggest, baddest gang in the world, to enforce that law. So it's a bunch of guys with guns, they're going to go enforce that law. Now, it may just be in the form of a fine, but the threat is no less. If you don't abide by this law, I'm going to fine you. If you don't pay this fine, then I'm going to put you in jail, or I'm going to take away your business. Right? You are going to get men with guns. They're either going to take your freedom away, they're going to take your money away, or they're going to take your life away in order to enforce that law. And that's why Republicans are so against having that law, is because, look, the next thing I want to go into is vaccines. And then I don't want to take one side. We're going to describe both sides. Okay? Alright, so the way that we're going to describe and kind of frame the work of group rights versus individual rights, the Democrats and the Republicans. So group rights over here with the Democrats, individual rights over here with the Republicans. And this is how I'm going to describe it. If you, as an individual, have a child, okay, and many of you out there, of course, already have children, or you may be a child, and in this case we're going to describe your parents. If you go in and you do decide to do that, you do have a child, you're responsible for that child. Unless you give it away, you are responsible for that child. Alright? If that child is not clothed, fed, and sheltered, and the child dies, you go to jail for neglect. You're getting a bunch of men with guns, and they're going to come and take you as an individual parent and take you to jail. Or at least they should take you to jail. Right? That is called neglect. So that is enforced. That well-being of that child is your individual responsibility unless you sign that child over to the state. Okay? So it's your individual responsibility. On the other end. Now, if that child is your individual responsibility, then if you're arguing about what is good and what is bad for the child, then you should be able to choose what is good and what is bad and what should go into that child's body, right? Some parents like to have a nice vegan diet. Some parents like to have a vegetarian diet. Some parents like to have nothing but meat. Some parents like to put nothing but sweets in their child's bodies. I don't know why that would be, but that is the case. All right, and that's okay. That's what being responsible for a child means. It means that this is my child. I'm going to do what I believe it's best for that child. And everybody needs to butt the heck out because I'm the one that's going to go to jail for this child. Not you, not the individual across the way, not my neighbor. I go to jail for this child. Now, if that be the case, as an individual, and you're responsible for that child's well-being, then you should be able to choose what does go in, does not go in to that child's body. And if you believe that vaccinating your child will harm your child as an individual, then as a parent, you should be able to make that decision. Okay? And don't worry, I'm going to get into the other side of this. I'm not going to advocate for one for the other, but this is the individual. This is kind of like a more Republican paradigm. All right. So as an individual, you're responsible for something. You should be able to choose what happens to it. Now, let's talk about public schools. Now, we are mandated to send our children to public school under threat of law, or at least they need an education. You can homeschool them as well. But under threat of law, they have to go to a school of some sort and get an education. Okay? And if I have to, mandated by law, have to send my child to a public institute, then I should be reasonably, should have a reasonable belief that I'm going to be safe sending my child to that school because I'm responsible for that child. So the rest of the parents that are in that school should have a reasonable belief that they're going to be okay and they're going to come home alive, right? That's, you know, maybe a few bumps and bruises from playing in the you know, recess, but reasonably safe. And if a child goes into a school that is unvaccinated and carrying a disease that my child is not protected against, then that can be a problem. That is, now we're going to see the rest of the parents versus the one parent that decides that I don't want my child to be introduced to these vaccines because I believe that it will cause autism, and then the other parents going, I don't want my child to die, so this child needs to be vaccinated because I believe that vaccinations are good. All right? And that's not unreasonable. That's not an unreasonable thought. Okay, but it does show you the two paradigms. You have the individual child over here, and you're looking at the individual child, and you're saying, or the individual parent, and you're saying, I believe this will hurt them, I'm not going to do it. And then over here you got all these other parents going, whoa, 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 just because you believe that this is not going to, that this is going to harm your child, we already believe that your child is now a harm to our children, so you need to find another place. But then you see the dilemma here, because they're both correct. And there's a lot of fixes. I'm not going to go into the fixes, but they're both correct. The child, whether or not it has vaccinations, needs to have an education in order to survive in our society, and then those children need to be reasonably safe, the children from the other parents. And that's a good framework for the Republican versus Democratic side. So let's go ahead and go into the conclusion. The conclusion is this. I mean, I know that those are two very heated discussions, guys, and I'm not trying to advocate for one or the other. I really am not. Honestly, I'm kind of individual that can argue both sides even if I don't believe in it, and I'm very good at it. But what I will tell you is that even in the case of the child vaccination, both the parents and the parent want what's best for their children. And I can tell you, as far as the LGBTQ, the lesbian community, because I'm just having a hard time with that acronym, the lesbian community, and then the Democrats in that situation, and the Republicans and the individual shop owners, the Republicans, Democrats, they want what's best for the community, and they want what's best for the United States. There was no malice. There was no, I just want to hate them. And that's what's very frustrating to me today, is that we're seeing this hate. We're seeing this, oh my gosh, they just hate everybody. That's not true. There are two different paradigms. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't individuals on the Republican side that aren't these things. And I'm not saying that there aren't individuals on the Democrat side that aren't unpatriotic. That is obviously untrue. There are going to be individuals that, honestly, there's individuals on both sides, the Republican and the Democrats, that are unpatriotic. And there's people on both sides of the aisle that are going to be an ism, an ist, or a phobia on both sides of the aisle. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that, generalistically speaking, they don't hate anybody. They want what's best, and the disagreement is what's best. So as you're looking at these things that are coming up, these topics, and we're going to go through quite a few of them, guys. I want to do something on Obamacare. I want to do a lot of videos. This is going to be one of at least 7 that I'm going to do. We're going to look at topics from both the group right position and the individual right position, so basically the Republican and the Democrat side, and get rid of the rhetoric of the lobbyists and see if we can't just look at these at their own merits, so that's a little bit easier to put into our minds and digest, and then come up with our own opinion and not just having an opinion of MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News, because they are getting toxic. Alright, I appreciate you listening. If you like what I said, absolutely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be putting one of these out at least every Thursday, and I will be streaming some video games, guys. I like to do a lot of video games. I'm a huge gamer. I will be doing some political speech. We'll have a question of the day with every game streaming. So I stream Mondays and Tuesdays from 6 to 9 Mountain Time. Alright, if you just want to come like send some poop to me, you know, there's your first clues. I do live in Mountain Time, so have a good time with that. And you know, I hope that we can have more discussions. And if you didn't like, if you just completely like, Gen Z, you're a freaking moron, you know, go ahead and hit the down, you know. And but here's one caveat: if you hit the dislike button, give me a reason. Go down to the comments, have a discussion with me, back it up with some facts, so that we can have a back and forth, because I'm always willing to talk to whoever wants to talk with me. Just because we disagree doesn't mean I don't like you. You guys have a great day.